Welcome to Becoming Limitless. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to optimize their brain and their body with biohacking. I'm going to teach you how to eliminate brain fog and upgrade your health so you can have more productivity, energy, and growth in your business. I'm your host, Tanessa Shears. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Becoming Limitless podcast. I have an interview which I am so excited to share for you. I've recorded this, at least a couple of months ago, back when I was still pregnant. And I am so excited to introduce to you colleague and fellow fitness professional, Jordan Syatt. So he is an elite powerlifter. He's a precision nutrition and Westside Barbell certified coach. He became well known as Gary Vaynerchuk, yes, Gary Vee's personal trainer. Jordan began Syatt Fitness, his online fitness coaching business, from his dorm at the University of Delaware in 2011, and has become one of the industry's leading experts in strength training, nutrition, and behavioral psychology. One of the only people in the world to deadlift 4 times his own body weight. Like, oh my gosh, 4 times? Jordan's work has been featured all over the world, including a variety of media publications such as CNN, The Huffington Post, Business Insider, Men's Health Magazine, Men's Fitness, and Schwarzenegger.com. Today's podcast, we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of fitness and where to start for entrepreneurs, particularly if you are sedentary and you're looking to start moving again in a way that feels good. Or if you're already moving, where do you start if you want to incorporate strength training, and when does metabolic conditioning comes in? And I asked him how he helps his clients with discipline, something we all come to struggle with when it comes to our fitness. So I'm not going to talk any longer. I'm going to jump into the interview with Jordan Syatt. All right, Jordan, welcome to the podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm good. This is always the awkward part where we pretend like we didn't just talk for like 5 minutes before. And for everyone listening, I swear all the time, but I was just informed I can't swear on this podcast. So I'm going to do my absolute best to make this no swearing, but I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Boston, and we swear constantly. And so like, as soon as I'm told I can't swear, that's like the only thing I can think in my head is like, all right, just don't drop the F-bomb. So I'm going to do my absolute best.
Yeah. Well, you know what? This will be good practice because I know you have a baby on the way. So eventually, I mean, we're doing that whole thing now in our house where we're like, how many weeks, months, or years do we have before she starts picking up what's going on in the music she's listening to and stuff like that? So we're like, when do we have to switch over to only Frozen music? So that's where we are right now. So anyways, welcome to the show. So a little bit of history for my audience. So I've known actually about Jordan for a long time. I actually started as a personal trainer in 2012. Oh, wow. So I remember you always being the guy that was the Harry Potter guy. And like, if you guys look at any of his stuff or his marketing or anything like that, there's always so many Harry Potter references. And that's what really stuck out to you. And I always knew who you were when you popped up and stuff like that. And I was literally just going through his website earlier, and get this. This is my favorite one. It says, if you don't get my Harry Potter references, then there is seriously something wrong with you. Please tell me how that became part of your brand.
It's funny because I've been personal training for years, but I started my website in 2011. And so if you go back and look at my old articles from my website, you will not find any Harry Potter stuff in there. And I remember I loved Harry Potter from when it first came out. I think I was in like 1st or 2nd grade when it came out. And at a certain point when you're a kid, you start worrying about being cool. And I remember in middle school and high school, it wasn't cool to like Harry Potter. So I would lie like at the table, at the lunch table. I vividly remember people being like, you read Harry Potter? But like, I don't read Harry Potter. And I would lie about it, even though I loved it, because I was worried about not being cool. And so when I first started writing, I tried all of my writing, all of my content was very sciencey, and I didn't express really who I was. It was just, I was trying to impress people with my knowledge. And then probably in about 2016, 2017, I got to a point where, I want to just be more of myself. And so I remember the first time I ever put a Harry Potter reference in an Instagram caption, and people lost it. Like they absolutely loved it. And I was like, all right, cool. I guess I'll do more Harry Potter captions. And it's so funny because I remember this one woman messaged me. She was like, I wasn't even looking for weight loss stuff, but one of your posts came across my feed because of your Harry Potter hashtags. And I found you, and I've lost 100 pounds because of that. And I follow all of your stuff just because you include the Harry Potter stuff, and it makes it more fun and easy to read. And so it was things like that that just kept me including it, because it took it away from the sciencey jargon to the more, hey, everybody can understand this with a little bit of humor as well.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. And that's creating such a memorable thing about you too. Like when you went through your Harry Potter thing, I'm pretty sure not long after I was going through my Twilight thing again. Everyone's like, you read Twilight? I was like, yes, I read those books very quickly. So I feel like everyone has something like that. I haven't thrown a Twilight reference into my marketing yet, but maybe
you
I
should.
will.
You should try it.
Right? Just really, yeah, do like a good 15-year throwback. Nobody would be expecting it. That's awesome. So, I mean, beyond the Harry Potter stuff and the being a personal trainer, tell us a little bit like who you are, like what is it that you exactly do, and how do you help people?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm a short, bald, nerdy dude is basically like who I am. I love lifting weights and helping people with their fitness. I try and break it down into the easiest possible concepts for people to understand. There's a lot of misinformation when it comes to health and fitness and nutrition and training. Everyone says either something is right or wrong, or good or bad, or this is fattening or this is fat burning. And there's just so much confusing misinformation. And the reality is, when you break it down, it's very simple. It's very straightforward. It doesn't have to be overly complex. It doesn't have to take over your life. In fact, if it is taking over your life, you're doing it wrong. And so for me, I just try and make fitness the easiest possible thing for people to understand, whether they're a complete beginner and they have 200 pounds to lose, or they're an advanced trainee and they're a little bit burnt out and they just want something a little bit more streamlined for them and their family. So whoever you are, just try and make it as simple and easy to apply as possible.
Oh, I think that's it. It's the simple part, because I think we all look for easy, but I don't necessarily think we can think anything is easy, but simple is a different thing, right? Yeah, because if it's simple, it's straightforward. We just know, like, okay, this is what I have to do. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. But I like that, taking all the complicated out of it, because it is so complicated. We're presented with way too many options. Mm-hmm. Everything there, we're told, like what you said, this is bad, this is good, do this, don't do that. And then if you wait 5 years, all the information will flip and you've like, I can't figure it out. Right. So I totally agree with you on that. So I know one of the names that you're associated in the industry with, and I know a lot of the entrepreneurs that listen to this show, is Gary Vee. And I'm so curious, how did you guys meet? Because I don't know if you guys know this, but Jordan is actually Gary Vee's personal trainer, if you haven't heard of him, he's an entrepreneur in obviously the online marketing space now, which has blown up. He's a fast talking guy. How did you meet him? How did your worlds intersect?
I'll say if your audience doesn't know who Gary Vee is, then that is very odd. So it's sort of a longer story, but I'll try and condense it. Basically, I started my website in 2011. I started coaching people in like 2004, 2005, but I started my website in 2011. And when I started it, I didn't know a business was possible. Like I had no idea that people would pay me to coach them in fitness online. It's before Instagram existed. I was competing in powerlifting at the time. And I wanted to make a website to help teach people. And because all the coaches I looked up to in the industry, they had websites. I was like, okay, so I guess I should make a website. So that's what I did. I got a website. It was awful. It was on WordPress, and it still is on WordPress, but now it's custom designed at this point. But before, it was just a terrible design. Like it was hard to read. But it was free. It was a free template that they used. And so I was writing articles for about 2 years. And so about 2 years in, I wrote an article, 3 ways to improve your posture if you're sitting at a desk all day. And keep in mind, for these 2 years, no one was reaching out about coaching. No one was off. Like I was getting like 20 views a day on my website, 18 of which were from my mom. So it was like no one was reading me or watching what I was saying. But after about 2 years, people started to to find me just naturally after 2 years of writing at least one article a week, every single week, nonstop. And I wasn't making any money. I was working other jobs. I was coaching and I was doing other stuff. And basically, so I wrote an article in 2012, this article about improving your posture while sitting at a desk. And to this day, it's this really important part of the story. It's one of my least read, least popular articles ever written. Like very few people have ever read it. And like most people didn't really like it very much. But one person in 2012 found it and read it. And he left a comment. And he asked me a question. And I had no idea who this person was, but because I got so few people commenting on my website, I replied to everybody. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. So I replied to him and that was it. And that was the end of it. I never met him. I never knew who he was. I didn't know anything about him other than this random person left a comment and I replied. Long story short, that person's name is Mike Vicanti, and he became Gary Vaynerchuk's coach about 3 years later. So he was an accountant in Chicago at the time that he left that comment. He was tired of his accounting job. So he left, he moved to New York and became a personal trainer. Through his personal training job, he met Gary and he became Gary Vaynerchuk's first coach. After his 2-year deal with Gary was up, Gary asked Mike if he wanted to continue. And Mike said, no, I'm done. And so Gary was like, okay, who's going to coach me next? And Mike had followed me ever since I replied to his comment on my website. And he knew that I specialized in a lot of like, not only just fitness and health, but pain reduction and postural work. And Gary had awful pain in his back and his hips and his knees and his shoulders. So Mike reached out to me and I was living in Tel Aviv at that time. This is about 4 years after that comment on that website article. And he was like, hey, do you want to coach Gary? And Mike and I had not spoken since that one time. And I didn't even know that it was the same guy. I had no idea. I only found this out afterwards. And after I had accepted the position, basically like Mike was like, yeah, I followed you ever since that article. And I go back and the comment is still there from 2012. But yeah, so basically after Mike reached out, I thought it was a joke. Like I didn't think I was actually getting offered the job to coach Gary. So I flew from Tel Aviv to New York. I coached Gary for an hour, flew back to Tel Aviv. And then 6 weeks later, I get a text message from an unknown number. Just basically it says, are you ready? And I don't know who it is. So I say, who the F is this? And that's literally how I replied to it. And then I get a text message from Gary flexing with his arms up with a shirtless picture of him flexing. And that's how I got the job. So yes, that's how I met Gary and I coached him for 3 years.
That's a really cool story. That just shows you with entrepreneurship, you show up at the beginning and you feel nobody's listening except your mom. And then it's just, how consistent are you? Because I'm sure that Mike was watching your business over those years, watching you develop, stay consistent, showing up. That's just such a good message in general about doors that it opens just by being consistent, right? Oh. Yeah, I love it. I love it. So let's get into some of the stuff that we can talk about for our entrepreneurs, because the average person that, we listen to this podcast, my clients and stuff like that. One of the biggest things that we start with is like, okay, I recognize that I've put all of this time into my business. It's grown. I'm excited. I can't remember the last time I've done a workout. I pretty much just grab food out of convenience at this point. What is sleep? That's that point that we're at right now. And most of the clients that I work with, like a basic goal that we like to start with is like, let's just not be sedentary. We don't need to be athletes, but let's not be sedentary. So where do you take people if they walk into you and they're at that point where they're just like, I'm not doing anything right now. Where do I start? Where would you suggest?
Yeah. So there are many places to begin, but I think one of the first things we have to sort of clarify from the beginning is many people think that, and wrongly think, especially that entrepreneurial crowd who are like go-getters and they want to excel in everything. They often think that unless they're going as hard as they possibly can, then it's just not worth it. And like, it doesn't do anything. And that is so stupid, to be frank about it. And again, I'm not cussing. I would go way harder than that. That's just really stupid. That's just a very stupid mindset. And it makes no sense whatsoever. If there's actually a new meta-analysis that came out just like very recently about the effect on walking's effect on all-cause mortality. And this is just literally steps per day. That's it. And this isn't just like a singular study. This is a study of studies. That's what a meta-analysis is. It reviews studies of studies and it compiles all of the research from all the most well-researched studies and well-performed studies. And it found that above all else, actually walking had a greater effect on living longer than smoking does on living less long. Right. So it's like you actually have a greater positive effect from walking than you have a negative effect from smoking, which is unbelievable to me. And so if I'm thinking about someone who's super busy, someone who's like working all the time, like trying to build their business, they're grinding, whatever it is, maybe they got family as well. If there's one thing that you can do, it's literally just walk. And for me, one of the things that I would do is actually Gary recently, he just got one of those like pads that are like a treadmill. That it's like, it's not a full treadmill, but it's like a pad, a treadmill. They have these like walking desk type things where instead of just a standing desk, which candidly I hate, I don't like standing desks. They actually cause often more harm with your joints, your knees, your hips, your lower back, and you're not moving. It's not like you're literally just standing and putting more pressure on your joints. I would rather use either a seated desk and then get up and walk like for 10, 15 minutes every hour, or use one of these mobile desks where you can walk in on this treadmill basically for several hours a day if you'd like. One of the things I'll do is I don't live in New York anymore, but what I would do is when I lived in a tiny New York apartment is on all of my calls, I would walk in my like 500 square foot apartment. I would just walk around the apartment and get my steps in. And the issue here is so many people think that walking doesn't count as exercise. And I'm going to say it again, that is remarkably stupid to think that walking doesn't count as exercise. If we look at the longest living populations in the world, it's not like they're doing HIIT. It's not because they're doing high intensity interval training. It's not because they're doing Orange Theory. It's not because they're like doing Olympic weightlifting. It's because they're walking the most. Like that's really it. Whether it's the Japanese or like the Okinawans, whether you look at Greek populations, they walk the most and they have the longest living populations in the world. If you look up the blue zones, it's like where you see the longest living populations, it's just walking. So if I'm going to start with someone fresh, and I don't care if they were a previous athlete or not, if you're sedentary right now, the best thing you can do is just walk more.
Yeah, we share the exact same viewpoint on that. Like, I'm like, we don't need to make you a workout program. You don't need to go pick up any weights. You just need to get moving. And like, it's interesting. Like the step counts that I see, because I track all those things with my clients, are like in the 1,500 to 2,500 range. Yeah. And, you know, like those are the things we have to get at first. Like, let's just get you up to 3,500 this week and let's then go to 5,000. But like getting that base of movement as humans, like we were designed to move. We're not a sedentary species. Like we're not designed that way. I mean, the way we work and our businesses do keep us at desks. So I'm the same way. It's like, get up, walk around your house a little bit, go outside. If we can get to that point and create the consistency with that is going to show me that we not only are in a fitness place where we are, you know, at least aware of moving and stuff like that, but we're going to be able to maintain the consistency when it comes time to work out.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Like the idea that we have to, I completely also agree with what you said, and that there is that mindset of like, well, if I'm not doing 5 1-hour plus workouts a week, what's the point? No, there is so much benefits to walking. And I think the studies say it's like as little as 10 to 15 minutes is compoundable throughout the day. So you can do 10 minutes and then 10 minutes later and then 10 minutes later. And it doesn't need to be an hour walk out of your day either. Because I know entrepreneurs are like, time for what? You want me to? No, 10 minutes, guys, just start with 10. That's such a good mindset. So like, and when we're talking about entrepreneurs, like we're going back to say that fitting in workouts seems very daunting, because the way our brains like to think about things is if I take time away from A and give it to B, I have less time with A.
Yep.
Right. But that's not always the case where we're taking time away for our businesses. So what would you say to someone who doesn't have enough time, but maybe they're past those daily steps? Maybe they're getting around 5,000 to 8,000 a day, but they want to start working out, but they can't figure out where they would pull that time from. Like, where do you like to start with clients?
Yeah. So great question. And again, like I would say if you're getting between 5,000 to 10,000 steps a day, and I would really probably bump it up. I wouldn't even start thinking about a fitness routine until you're getting at least 7,000 to 10,000 steps a day. If like 7 is like my marker for benchmark for the lowest, but like, let's say you're getting 1,500 right now. First, like you said, go to 3,000, and from 3,000, go to 4,000, but work up to 7,000 before you're like, I need an intense routine. Because if you're thinking you need an intense workout routine before you can even get 7,000 steps a day, you're putting the cart before the horse. So make sure you get the steps first. From there, like you could do a work like either 2 or a 3 day a week workout, which is totally fine. If you're going to do 2 days a week of strength training or working out, then I would say do 2 full body workouts. And I would try and like separate them by at least 72 hours. So maybe a full body workout on Monday and then a full body workout on Thursday, or full body workout on Friday. Either one of those is fine. If you're going to do 3 days a week, I prefer not doing full body. I would prefer a lower body, upper body, then a full body workout. Because if you do full body every day for 3 days, it's actually too taxing on your body and you can't actually progressively overload properly. And a lot of people think you have to do full body if you're doing 3 times a week, but you're not giving your muscles enough time to recover. So I prefer that lower body on Monday, upper body Wednesday, full body Friday for a 3-day routine. And you don't need to do more than 30 to 45 minutes. Like that's plenty. And not to mention, you can be walking in between your sets to get your steps in. Like you don't just have to, I see people all the time, they're in the gym and like in between sets, they'll sit down and they're texting. It's like, it's funny. When I was coaching Gary, when he came in the gym, like we were doing the warm up and we were foam rolling a little bit, I would let him be on his phone. But once the workout started, there's no phone. Like he wasn't using it. And if you think you're busier than Gary, you are out of your mind. You are out of I caught that one.
I almost got you there.
You're out of your mind. I promise you, you're not busier than Gary. I promise you that. Like that guy's schedule is booked out years in advance from 5 a.m. until midnight or 1 or 2 a.m, literally every minute, including his shower, his drive to the office, everything is booked out. And he could fit it in. And I'm not saying it's easy, but you can definitely do it. And the way that Gary did it, which I thought was interesting, Gary basically programmed it. It's 7 days a week. So I was coaching him literally 7 days a week. There was not a single day off. There was no weekends, no breaks, no vacations, no nothing. You don't have to do that at all. And I explained this to Gary. I was like, just so you know, like this is completely and utterly overkill. You don't need this. And he said, no, the reason I do this is because if it's just a part of my schedule every day, then it's not something that like I can miss, if that makes sense. Like brushing my teeth, taking a shower, getting dressed. These are all parts of my routine. If this is part of my routine, then I always have the time spaced out or blocked out for it, as opposed to all of a sudden being like, oh no, like I'm supposed to do it on Tuesday, but this meeting came up. It's like, no, it's just always in my routine. So I do like that idea of every day there's a block of time that is specifically devoted to your workout or to your steps or whatever it is. Like if you don't have time during the day to get your steps, then sometimes what I'll do is I'll wake up a little bit earlier and I'll just get all of my steps in about 45 minutes before the day starts. So now I've front loaded my day with my steps in so I can do whatever I need. So I do like that idea if someone has that flexibility, but from a strength training perspective, 2 to 3 days a week is really all you need. You don't need more than that if you're getting your steps in and you're getting a good strength training program in.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I've always done the 2 to 3, 2 full body or the upper lower split with the full body, because correct me if I'm wrong, it is, if you're wanting to build muscle, hitting that muscle group twice a week is enough to stimulate growth. And if you're just wanting to maintain, once a week. But I always I'm like you, I like to recommend the 2 to 3 strength training. And as far as like minimum effective dose, you said 30 to 45 minutes, but for someone that is really cramped, can we still get like a positive effect out of doing 3 20-minute workouts in a week?
Yeah, from a health perspective, absolutely. I would say if your goal was to stand on a bodybuilding stage, no. But you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to build your business. So your goal probably isn't to get a spray tan and put on a bathing suit and stand in front of judges and have them check your body. You just want to be healthier and maybe get a little bit more defined and stronger. So if you do like I would do what's called a density circuit. If we were doing like a 15 to 20 minute workout, that's my favorite way to program that. So a regular strength training program, it's a little bit more comprehensive and it will take about 30 to 45 minutes, maybe 60, depending on how much volume you're doing. But a density circuit is, let's say you have only 20 minutes, right? So essentially you pick one circuit or two. For the sake of ease, we'll say one circuit, and let's say it's a lower body day. So you're going to do a lower body day for this density circuit. You put 20 minutes on the clock and we could say, all right, so you have squats, Romanian deadlifts, you've got squats, Romanian deadlifts, farmers, carries, and planks, 4 exercises. And you basically run through those 4 exercises as many times as you can in 20 minutes. You could also do 2 different circuits of 10 minutes each, or 4 different circuits of 5 minutes each, whatever you want. I prefer either 2 of 10 or 1 of 20. And the way you progress with this is, let's say for this first 20 minute, the first time you do it, you see how many times you can get through. So let's say you get through that circuit 4 times in 20 minutes. Well, the next week, try and get through at least 4 and 1, and then 4 and 2, and then maybe until you can do 5 times for that circuit. And then until you get through 6 times for that circuit. And then once you can do that circuit like 6 times through, you've progressed it dramatically from the first time, you switch the circuit, you change the exercises, and you start over again with that 20 minutes, and you see how many times you can get through it. That's how you progress. And there's a very basic principle in strength training called progressive overload, which I've said a couple of times. The only way to get stronger and build muscle is to progressive overload, is to get better, a little bit stronger, to either add weight or improve in time and increase the number of reps you're doing, increase something. It's this small progressive overload. So if you go from doing 4 rounds to 5 rounds, you've progressively overloaded yourself. You've done more volume, you've done more intensity. You're going to be getting stronger from that. So that should be your goal, is finding ways to improve with what you're doing.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And actually, speaking of that, one of my clients actually back last year had sent me a downloadable PDF that you have out called the Metabolic Blueprint, which is like literally jam packed with these type of workouts that you're talking about. I don't know, like, I think this would be a great place. Like, if you want to share a little bit about what that is, I think it's like 101 workouts or something like that. Like, I've done a whole bunch of them, you guys. Like, if you are like, I have 20 minutes to bang out today, or 30 minutes, like, this is full. I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about it and where people can find it as well.
Yeah. So basically it's a lead magnet, right? So every entrepreneur who has an email list is going to know what that is. It's going to put you on my email list, so you can download it for free. And if you want to not get my emails, then just unsubscribe. But so you go to 101metabolicworkouts.com, you can download it for free. And basically I was like, I need a way to get people on my email list, which, by the way, if you're an entrepreneur and you don't have an email list, like, you better get that immediately. But I was like, I don't want to give something that's nonsense. Like, I want to give something that's actually going to help people, which I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, they make a big mistake of like, I just need to get people on my email list, and they give nonsense. Like, they don't actually provide something that's helpful. So I put in 101 of my favorite workouts that I actually use with clients, and people like can't believe that I actually give it away for free, but that actually ends up leading to way more clients as a result of it. People purchase more from me because they like the free product so much. So yeah, it's basically, if you're ever not sure what to do, you could open it up and literally close your eyes, put your finger on one, and boom, you have your workout for the day.
Yeah. And there's like, they're broken down into like upper body, lower body, full body. And there's like all kinds of equipment. Like, I remember there's body weight ones, kettlebell ones, dumbbell. There's like literally every equipment you have or don't have. And like, I've found it so effective, and I've shared it with other clients, and it's been a great resource. So definitely, I'll make sure I leave a link to that in the show notes as well for you to check out. But yeah, that was actually how I found out about being able to schedule this interview with you, because she follows you and all your emails and stuff like that.
Oh, that's awesome.
She's like, Tanessa, you've got to get Jordan on the podcast. He's got so much good stuff to say. So I love that. And that features a lot of stuff called metabolic conditioning too, right? So like, it's short Metcon. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what that means and why it's different from going on the treadmill or just doing strength training?
Yeah. So it's basically, metabolic conditioning is traditionally a little bit of a higher intensity workout. It's one of those things that most people look at and think like, that is inherently better. And I wouldn't say it's inherently better, but it is a really great tool to use as part of your workouts. It's one of the things where people like to sweat. People like to get their heart rate up. They like to feel like, oh, I'm working really hard. And again, it's not inherently better, but it is a great way, especially if you're looking for that, like that hormone release, like the endorphins and all of that. There's no question about it. You get a little bit more of that with a little bit of a higher intensity workout than you do from just walking, right? So you go on a walk, you might feel better, but when you get your heart rate up, you sweat a little bit. There's something that literal, like a stress release that you get with a hormone release, with the endorphin release, where you actually feel better. That's sort of like that energy that people talk about from working out. And the issue is, so many fitness professionals don't know how to program that safely. And they program them too much, and they're too high impact, and people get hurt. And so I was like, you know what, if this is what people want, which it really is, people like really want these higher intensity workouts, I'll give it to them, but I'm going to do it safely. I'm going to make sure that if you do these workouts, you're not going to get hurt. You're not going to get injured. It's not going to be causing back pain or knee pain or hip pain. I want everyone to be able to do these workouts, whether you're a complete beginner or advanced trainee. That way you can feel better. You get a good workout in a very short time frame, but you're also not injuring yourself.
Yeah, I think that's so important to mention. Like I've been teaching fitness classes, boot camp classes since 2008. Long time there. And I can tell you that the classes that I program that are like more Metcon style, they do fill up a lot faster, but the regular like strength training, working on form, I don't it's fascinating watching the mindset around that. They just don't excite people as much, but they have their value. And I think it's so easy when you're really into like the fitness apps and the group classes and stuff like that to just go there and get hammered for an hour every single day. Like you can't do that to your body. And that leads right into what I was going to talk about next, which is rest days. I mean, we have two problems going on here. Entrepreneurs want to jump into like, if it's not perfect and it's not 5 days a week of an hour and a half, what's the point? And then at the same time, that's where they think they should start. But I want you to talk a little bit about the value of rest days and like why we need them and how many days are we considering rest days in a program for someone who's maybe just starting out or moderate?
Yeah, so I think there's a bunch to unpack here, like how many rest days per week, but also what does a rest day include? Like what can you do or not do on a rest day? And the other thing I'll talk about is, like you were mentioning, a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, they think, all right, well, I need to work out every day or 5 days a week, whatever it is. And if not, then what's the point? And the question I always ask these people is essentially, well, how has that worked out for you in the past? Because if it was working out well for you, you wouldn't be talking to me. And the reality is oftentimes in January or whatever, whenever they decide like, all right, I'm going to get my stuff together. All right, I'm going to go every day. And that works for maybe a week, 2 weeks, a month, but then they burn out and they can't do it. And then they fall off and then they just quit altogether. It's like, clearly that's not good. Like, yeah, you might've gotten great results doing something stupid, but how long were you able to do that for? And did the results go away? Did you gain all the weight back? Did you actually get the results you wanted? Sort of like the people who do the HIIT classes every single day. It's like, when you ask them, are you actually happy with your progress? They're like, no, they're just doing the HIIT because they're scared of losing progress. They think that doing these high intensity workouts every single day is the only thing keeping them where they are. And even though they're not happy with where they are, they don't want to go backwards. So they do it out of a fear. And so what I would say is rest days are not a suggestion. They're a requirement. You need rest days. This is really important to understand. If you're not giving yourself rest days, you're not giving your body enough time to recover. When you work out, it's sort of an overused analogy and it's not technically accurate, but the phrase of like you're breaking yourself down in order to build yourself back up. That's what I want you to imagine. When you're working out, you're actually tearing muscle fiber. You are breaking yourself down, and the rest days give you time to build it back up, to recover, to grow back stronger and healthier. If you're working out every single day, you're not giving yourself enough time to recover. I don't care what you think, especially if you're lacking on sleep and you're working really hard and your stress is really high. It's actually even harder for your body to recover. So it's even more important. So I would say 2 to 3 rest days a week is plenty. If you want to work out, the most, I would say 4 to 5 days a week at most is all you need. 2 to 3 rest days is great. And on rest days, it doesn't, like, you're not in hospice. You don't need to lie in bed and not move the whole day. You're welcome to get your steps in. I think 7 to 10,000 steps is a really good goal to shoot for. You're welcome to do stretching and mobility and soft tissue work. That's what I did with Gary even though we worked out 7 days a week, not every day was a strength training workout or a HIIT workout. It was like 3 to 4 days a week of strength. And then the other days were getting your steps in and making sure that he's staying mobile and fresh and doing a lot. We did so much mobility and stretching. For Gary, his back went out when he was 18 years old. And every year, 3 to 4 times a year thereafter, his back would always go out and he'd be out of work for a week every single time it happened. And it was massively painful. His assistant could only book him on flights on one side of the plane because his neck couldn't bend the other way. And when he wanted to sleep on the plane, he had to be able to bend his neck to put it on the side of the plane. So he could only sit on one side, but he had such a lack of mobility in his neck that he could only sit on one side of the plane. So we did so much mobility. Ever since I worked with him, his back has not gone out since. Not a single time in the last 5 or 6 years. He can now sit on either side of the plane, which is great. And so 3 days a week or so of strength training with Gary, 4 days if it wasn't as stressful as a week with work and travel, but usually 3 days a week of strength. And the other days were walking and stretching and mobility. And that was it.
Yeah, I love that and always think about that. So do you find that there's a difference between rest days and active recovery days? Like how would you program those differently? If we're talking about rest days, you're saying as like either off or just foam rolling or something like that. Do you define a difference between recovery days and rest days, or are they all the same?
I sort of use them interchangeably based on how I train, because for me, very rarely at this point in my like training career do I just have a day where I do nothing, like just sit and do nothing. That's very rare. And that's because I'm an active jujitsu competitor. I love training. Like for me, that's the best part of my day. And even though I'm an entrepreneur, I've now carved out time in my day where like I love it and I have plenty of time to do it. So for me, I use it interchangeably. But if I was going to talk to a client, for example, who's like not where I'm at, I would say a rest day is like where you just get your steps in. An active recovery day would be something where like, all right, we're going to program specific mobility drills for you based on what you need. Maybe we're going to do a little bit of zone 2 conditioning work, which is slightly higher intensity than just walking, just gets your heart rate up a little bit more. It's not zone 4, zone 5. It's not high intensity sprints, but it gets your heart rate in that like 120 to 140 beats per minute range. It's where you can have a conversation, but it's slightly more difficult, whether it's the elliptical, treadmill, rowing machine, biking, swimming, whatever it is. But doing a little bit of that, that's actually where zone 2, you get so many benefits for your heart health and your cardiovascular health that I would say if you could do that on some of your active recovery days would be tremendously beneficial. I actually, anytime I have a business call, I'm doing zone 2. I'd say probably like 8 out of 10 times. The other times I'm just walking. But if I have a business call, I'm like on the elliptical and I'm just doing, I'm like, I have a heart rate monitor on, I have a Garmin watch. I just make sure that, and you don't even need the watch. You could just use what's called the talk test, where like, if you can say 12 to 15 words and not lose your breath, you're probably in about zone 2. If you're losing your breath, you're above that and you're going too hard. And a lot of people, when they first start doing this, they're like, this feels like nothing, but you get so many heart health benefits from that. So for your rest days, I would just say get your steps in. And for your active recovery days, specific mobility, and also if a little bit of zone 2 would be great.
Yeah. So if you guys are listening to this and you're in that sedentary place right now, it sounds like we're talking a bit about an onion layered approach, starting with, can you get up to 7 to 10,000 steps per day? Like from where you are, start there. When you can get that daily, or at least the majority of days of the week, then start in with 2 to 3 days of some basic strength training, either, full body or splitting it into upper, lower. When you've gotten the hang of that, maybe start adding in a little bit of Metcon in there, a little bit of HIIT training, or like you were talking about, some zone 2 cardio to supplement this, but making sure that you're getting days where you're either just getting your steps or getting your rolling in. And think of it like this doesn't need to be something you achieve in 3 months. This can be a long-term goal over a year, where you are literally just focusing on what can I maintain right now that feels simple, not easy necessarily, because I got to tell you, one of the funniest conversations I have with clients all the time is like, I've been teaching fitness since 2008. So I've been active a lot longer than that. I still wake up and my brain is like, no, I don't want to do this today. This is just put it till tomorrow. It's fine. And I mean, I'm going to say right now, pregnancy has changed that. And it has made, honestly, on these days, if I get 5,000 steps, I'm impressed now, because my pelvis is a hot mess. All my joints are so loose right now that, like, honestly, I find about the 3,000 step point, I'm starting to be in pain. So I miss the steps. However, I find that, like, at this point, like looking at layering that in, realizing it's going to take time. What can I maintain? And I find easy, or simple, not easy. My brain's not always going to agree. So I want to just jump into our last topic here before we wrap up. Talking a little bit about that discipline and how you work on that with your clients, because you're going to go through this when you're starting, and it is not something that goes away. Your brain is going to wake up and you are not going to want to do it. That's just part of the name of the game. It's our brain. We want to be comfortable. What do you do with your clients to help them understand the process of creating, whether you want to call it discipline or, whatever it is?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny when you were just talking about how, you wake up in the mornings and you don't want to do it either. Like, I wake up like that all the time. Like, very rarely do I ever wake up and I'm like, oh yeah, time to work out. Like, usually I'm like, okay. Like, I don't want to, for whatever it's worth. It's one of the reasons, like, I've been doing this for the majority of my life, and I still hire a coach, because I still have a coach write my programming, because when I pay somebody to do my programming for me, I'm way more likely to actually do it, because essentially every workout is now, like, if I skip it, I've just wasted money. And I'm not going to do that. Like I'm not, I would be like, I could have put that money into Facebook ads. I could have put that money into something else. Right. And it's like, I just wasted that money. So a lot of coaches don't hire coaches, which I think is a big mistake. So if you have the extra income, even hire an online coach, like someone like $50 a week, $75 a week, and they do all of your programming for you, like, or like whatever. Like there's so many options for online coaching. Put some skin in the game. It's going to help you a lot. The reality is one of the most common questions I get is, how do you get motivated? Like, how do you actually get motivated? And I have this whole thing, I call it Dumbledore's loop, which is, another Harry Potter reference. Most people think, when they think of motivation, they think, well, first they're going to get motivated. Just out of nowhere, they're going to get motivated. From that motivation, they're going to take action. From that action, they get results. And from those results, they get more motivated. That is not how it works. What Dumbledore's loop is actually, first, you have to take action, even and especially when you are not motivated, right? When you are not feeling like it, the first thing you do is take action. From that action, you get results. From those results, you get more motivated. From those results, you get more motivated to take more action. So it's action, results, motivation, not motivation first. So the first step is to take action, which is one of the reasons why we spent the first however long of this conversation talking about just getting your steps in. It's so simple, and it's the lowest barrier to entry of actually taking action. So if you're not sure where to begin and you're not feeling motivated, just get up and walk. That's the easiest thing you can possibly do. It's a much higher barrier to entry to go to a gym, maybe drive 15 minutes, get to the gym, go in there and then get started. Whereas otherwise, just walk. If you just start walking, you're going to start feeling more motivated almost immediately. So the reality is, you're not going to be motivated most of the time. I'd say probably 8 out of 10 times you're not going to be motivated at all. It's just going to be something you have to develop and do, regardless of whether or not you're motivated.
Oh, I love to hear that. This is coming from 2-decade plus people in the fitness industry saying majority of the time we wake up and we're just not into it. So if you're feeling that, there's nothing wrong with you. You didn't do anything wrong. This is a totally normal thing your brain is doing. And it's, getting consistent with what you can do, showing yourself over and over again that you are the person who gets my steps in. Just like we said, start there. Oh, that's such great advice. Well, I've loved having you on the podcast today. I think everyone, what's funny? We haven't done an episode entirely dedicated to fitness yet. And we've done like over 50 episodes. So I think this is well timed, and I'm so excited for everyone to hear this episode. So before we wrap up, how can people find you online if they want to follow you or get on your list? Like, where can people keep in touch with you?
Yeah, so I have my own podcast, the Jordan Syatt Mini Podcast, or if you want to get on my email list, the 101metabolicworkouts.com, Instagram, Syatt Fitness, or if you just Google my name, Jordan Syatt, you're going to find me all over the place.
Yeah, that's awesome. Awesome. Well, any last words or anything that you think would be super helpful to entrepreneurs that we didn't cover today?
I think that's pretty much it. I mean, that's the spiel there. I mean, more on motivation is just a feeling, right? It's sort of like happiness or sadness or jealousy, or it's an emotion, right? And in the same way you would never expect to be happy all the time, you can't expect to be motivated all the time at all. So stop trying to rely on motivation. And if you consider yourself a disciplined person, which I hope you would if you're an entrepreneur, then apply that discipline to your health.
Yeah, I love that. I think it was one of my spin class I was in one time, and it said the instructor was talking about discipline is what picks up when motivation falls off. So when that beginning newness and it's not so exciting and new and fresh wears off, that is when the discipline carries you the rest of the way. I think that is a beautiful note to finish on. So thank you so much for coming on the Becoming Limitless podcast. And I'll make sure that, like we said, everything we talked about will be in the show notes. Take care, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye. Ready to begin each day feeling energized and focused? I'd love to work with you one-on-one. In my Becoming Limitless program, you're going to learn how to optimize your brain and body with science and biohacking so you can be highly productive and grow your business faster. Join me over at TanessaShears.com/work with me. I'll see you there.